this tweet. All right. We're going to get started in just a second, everybody. Just going to wait for Pete. Pete's on his way, so be on the lookout for him coming into the stream relatively soon. But we're going to be talking a lot about today. We're really going to talk about this Draymond Green news. Not so much the kind of like what he said, but kind of just the situation around it. We're also going to talk a little bit about kind of what I saw from Gilbert Arenas, actually talking about how really Joel Embiid is actually to blame for what happened and not Ben Simmons. So we'll talk about that as well. And then we'll just talk a little bit about some NBA news and rumors that are around. We're going to go for about an hour. I do apologize that we can't go any longer, but that's what we're going to talk about today. So be on the lookout for that stuff coming soon. Pete will be on here. And we'll talk all about that and so much more. It's going to be a fun episode, guys. More news and rumors type of things rather than, I would say, straight news, other than maybe just like one thing that we'll talk about with NBA teams, like which young squad we probably like the most. So we're going to talk a lot about that as well. So be on the lookout for that. Let me just make sure that people that I know are getting the stream so they can watch it. Let's see here. Let's make sure we're in the stream. Excuse me. All right. So, hopefully everyone is having a good Wednesday afternoon. I know that the days just seem to blur by, especially if you work in a high school or in a school district. You know that these days just fly by just because school's gone and you don't really have work in this type of month. But hopefully you guys are enjoying your afternoon, evening, wherever you're at. And let's get ready to talk a little bit about this because it's going to be a lot of fun and I think a little controversial, especially with both Pete and I kind of talking a lot about this stuff. But let's see here. Let me play some music really quick and get us a little bit vibing. There we go. Vibe a little bit and then we'll get going. Righty, everybody. Let us get started with today's news and rumors and basketball opinions. Like I said, hopefully you guys are enjoying your Wednesday afternoon, wherever you may be, however you may be listening. Hopefully you are enjoying your day. And we're going to get, like I said, we're going to get started talking about, of course, the Draymond Green news. We're going to talk about the young teams. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, especially this Gilbert Arenas quote that just came out, talking about Joel Embiid, about Joel Embiid, blaming Joel Embiid actually instead of Ben Simmons. So we'll get into that and so much more. Pete, are you live with us?
I am here.
Pete is here, everybody. Everybody welcome in Pete.
Let's get it. Let's get it.
Alrighty. Let's start off with the first thing, and we're gonna just, let's just get through this. It's not usually my favorite thing to talk about, to be honest with you, Pete, and that's just this Draymond Green nonsense that is going on. But unfortunately, we have to talk about it just because of everything that's going. So we're going to hit the live scene really quick and get right into it right away. And that is, of course, Draymond Green firing back at Jordan Poole's dad and also Kevin Garnett. It seemed like he had a busy day on Twitter today. And this is what Draymond Green said after the tweet from Jordan Poole's dad, talking about kind of how Draymond Green was kind of ducking him and this whole time. Draymond Green goes on to say, "That's cute. It's impossible to avoid you in the arena for a year, champ. I got to get my family in from that family room every game and stop using those words. They usually don't go over well amongst men." We also have another quote from him, and that is, of course, Draymond Green falling for a fake tweet coming from the NBA Central, which, of course, is the parody account of NBA Central. And I know that, this is kind of prevalent on Twitter and mostly a lot of places on the internet, but really on Twitter, especially with the blue check mark. I know it can fool a lot of people, but the quote goes on to call out, Kevin Garnett actually calls out Draymond Green, fakely, of course, talking about how Draymond Green punching JP is like a senior punching a freshman who's half his size and then walks around talking himself up as if he's like that. Come try me, Dre. Which then Draymond Green responds to that one, "I tried to when I was a rookie, G, and you started talking to yourself like I wasn't talking to you. What's that like? The freshman picking on the senior citizen that's double his size at Kevin Garnett," which then Kevin Garnett himself responds to him saying, "That's a fake tweet. NBA Centel at Elon Musk. See what the hell is happening. Fix it." All right, Pete. I have a lot of thoughts, but I kind of want to let you go first on this. I know that there was no prep time or anything like that for you. But what do you make of all this? Again, like this isn't something that I love doing on here on the channel, but I think Draymond Green makes it too easy for himself at times. And so, Pete, I'll let you go first here, man.
I mean, there's just zero accountability with this dude, man. I mean, from the very beginning, what did dude do? He never said sorry one single time legitimately and meant it. Whether or not you have that type of energy and that's your persona and that's how, you've made your living in this business, right? I don't ever think it's an excuse to act that way and make it seem like you're being cool or, like whatever that is, man. There's some like faux machismo to it where it's like, this is what it takes to be a man as far as Draymond Green is concerned. He even says it in there where he said, like, words like that don't go well with men or whatever he says, right? It's like, what does that even mean? That's Jordan Poole's dad saying you punched his son in the face and he doesn't like it. He's not supposed to say that? I mean, it's weird it took so long for Jordan Poole's dad to say it. And how he said it, I'm sure him and Draymond Green have been relatively near each other. And Jordan Poole's father has not said anything to him this past year. Still, what's Draymond's point? What is he saying? He's saying he's, feminine for wanting to stick up for his son or whatever it is. It just doesn't even make any sense. Like, it's so insane, bro. It's like I'm going to use a reference. I don't even like to use this reference. I don't like this individual. I'm sorry if there's people who watch this channel that do. I mean, there is some level of like, this is like the Andrew Tate of the NBA in some ways, man. Like, it's like he's telling people this is what it takes to be a man. Follow my words and my wisdom. But he clearly is just an emotional wreck. It's just an angry person who lets it come out and thinks that this is what it takes to be successful. The problem is neither of them really handled it super well, and the whole situation was just awkward. It's just funny. This is my last thing for this. I find it very, very, very humorous, Bernie, and maybe you'll agree, maybe not. Every time there's a big situation like this with Draymond Green, it takes a year and a half for this dude to get the nuts to come out and say anything about it. And then he acts like I've just been waiting just to, clear the air this whole time, like the KD situation, right?
Yeah.
And then he pretends like that whole situation is completely, he's absent from fault in that situation, as is KD. That's not real life, though.
Mhm.
Like they were almost in a physical altercation on the court a year after they won a title, and it was a train wreck for that season. It literally is the reason KD ended up leaving. Whether or not it was the reason on paper he left 6 months later, it definitely was, one of the initial nails in the coffin. I think it's funny, man. This guy is so manly, so machismo, but he really has to take a long time to come out with the truth about this stuff and, speak candidly about it. I don't know. That's not how I think of masculinity. Like, come out and stand on your own 2 feet and say the truth and say what you mean from the very beginning. If that's how you felt, say it from the beginning. Don't come around a year and a half later. Because what the fake Kevin Garnett said is not true. It's not that wrong. Excuse me. It's not that wrong. It is like he's way bigger than Jordan Poole. Way bigger. It never made sense from the beginning to act like he was a tough guy for doing that. It was a soft move from the beginning, and now he's acting even softer as far as I'm concerned. Bernie,
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah, really quick. I'm just gonna read some of Drunk's comments, and then I'll give you
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
opinion. So Drunk said Draymond falling for a fake account shows he's completely unhinged. Draymond ran KD off, Jordan Poole off when enough is enough. Warriors brass have literally been held hostage by this dude long enough because they scared to break up the trio. Poole's dad wanted to see how the Warrior situation would play out.
That's true, Poole. Or drunk. It's called you Jordan Poole. I actually agree with you. I think if anything, maybe that is the best explanation is just like, let's see what ends up happening with Jordan Poole on this team. Maybe they'll choose
Yeah.
him over Draymond. That was a big discussion in offseason last year. We talked about it. I know we did.
Yeah. Yeah, because here's my thing with this whole situation. Like, I like Draymond Green as a player. I think he's done a lot of things tremendously for the Warriors team. I even think for kind of solidifying his role. Again, like I don't think anybody else could do that besides him. And whether you hate it or love it, I will say like his impact on this Warriors team is probably going to be 20 years down the line. We'll talk about it and how impactful it was. But what's funny to me about this whole situation really is, you know, Draymond Green and the rest of these NBA athletes get so annoyed and upset every time a media member asks them a question repeatedly. Who's the
Mm-hmm.
GOAT? Jordan LeBron. All these other type of questions that these players get annoyed with. But yet here is Draymond Green talking about a 2022 preseason situation, talking about it in a 2023 preseason about to start the league or about to start
Yeah.
training camp and all this other stuff like that in the next couple of months. And we're talking about the same thing right now. I just think it's annoying because we've already had this conversation. There's been some sort of half-hearted apology. Everyone's moved on from it besides Draymond Green and the rest of the NBA players that want to talk about it. I think he's on Patrick Beverley's podcast, or whether I don't know if he's on his or if he was on his. Sorry, on
You're talking about Draymond?
yeah, Draymond.
Are you talking about when he was talking to Paul George?
No. He just like there's a clip of him talking with Patrick Beverley about
Oh,
this
okay.
situation. That's where kind of this quote stuff came out, or like
Oh, yeah, yeah. Gotcha. I
yeah,
thought you were changing it to a different thing. Gotcha. Keep
yeah.
going. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all good. But I mean, that to me is the frustrating part, Pete. Like when I really think about Draymond Green, again, player bar none, one of the best to ever do it. But just as a person, it just we talk about, like I said, people get mad and frustrated with Draymond Green, or like he gets mad and frustrated with the media talking about all this stuff, but he's the one that continues to do it every time. And that to me is the frustrating part about, wanting to support a guy like Draymond Green, but he continues these antics that continue to, I would say, hinder his career. It continues to hinder him as a
Mm-hmm.
player and a person. And he has a podcast and he has every right to do so. He's more successful than us. And we're kind of a small pin in the haystack. But you can't be mad at the media for asking these questions when you're going to bring up the same talking points over and over again when it comes to the Jordan Poole situation. I at the end of the day, we know that it was wrong for him to punch Jordan Poole, whether or not Jordan Poole called Draymond Green the B word or whatever
Yeah, what?
happened. It's funny
Imagine how many
because
times he called them
yeah,
names before that.
well, but I mean, like Draymond Green did it before. I mean, he did it to Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant didn't like it. He did it to LeBron James. We all know what happened. He got suspended. Um, and so to me, that is where like I said, I get frustrated with a guy like Draymond Green as the person because he does all these things, but we continue to talk about the antics of Draymond Green. We don't talk about, hey, Draymond Green is the ball player. Hey, Draymond Green, talking about, X's and O's with him. Like, I know that is the most boring stuff. And for the average NBA fan, and I don't want to call out, casual fans, but they're not interested in X's and O's. They're not interested in how plays work. They're not interested in how all this, how to set the ball screen, what angle you're setting at. And that's not what they're interested in. They're interested in the drama. I think just like anybody, unfortunately, that's what this society has kind of been. It's just like how much drama can get me the most clicks. And I just think Jordan Poole, excuse me, not Jordan Poole, but Draymond Green is kind of the perfect antithesis of what we're seeing in today's culture, which is get the clicks, get the stuff talking, and then, let your play get you paid and things like that. I don't know. I'm sick of it, Pete, just from that perspective of, we've already talked about, the Draymond Green, Jordan Poole stuff ad nauseum. I was about to cuss right there. We talk about it ad nauseum, right? And I just get tired of it. I get sick of it. But here's Draymond Green bringing it back up again. Whether he's on Pat Beverly, you signed off on being on the show, or whether it's his show. I can't remember whose show it was. But whether or not you signed on for it, you're still talking about it. And enough is enough. Like, talk about what your Warriors, what you guys are going to look like this year. I know he just had a quote about him and Chris Paul, talking about saying that he publicly didn't like him before. I'm not going to be like, oh man, I've changed because he's my teammate. Now I look forward to talking amongst men. And again, it's this. I feel like it's this weird obsession with Draymond Green and this sort of masculinity thing that he keeps talking about. It's just to me, being a man is not stomping on people and kicking him in the nuts. you know what I mean? Like, I know that's a cheap shot. I know it's a little bit of a cheap shot to take on Draymond Green, but
it's not. It's true. It's not a cheap shot. It's true.
And to me, like we talk about like that stuff. Like, again, really, to me, being a man is not even saying any of this stuff. Maybe besides the Chris Paul one, I get that one. But talking about responding to Jordan Poole's dad on Twitter, talking about Jordan Poole situation when you've already talked about it before. Like, to me, that's not being a man. Being a man is talking about it off the court, doing that stuff. And again, it's this culture that we live in of social media. The internet has done a lot of great things for us, but it's also, I would say, taken away some of the more intimate stuff in terms of like having a conversation with somebody when you're upset with them, or I feel like especially when it comes to like the Steve Kerr Michael Jordan thing that happened years ago, right? They handled that situation. We never heard about it since. We didn't hear Steve Kerr going on and having a tour about like, I stood up to Michael Jordan, I said what's up, or whatever Michael Jordan or whatever Steve Kerr and Michael Jordan got heated about. Like, we never heard any of it. And that to me,
until 25 years later, yeah.
Didn't really, and we still don't really know why he punched him, right? We just know that he did. And so that to me is where I get frustrated, I would say, when talking about this stuff, because again, I think that this stuff takes away from what we really should be talking about with Draymond Green, which is probably one of the best, one of the best role players of all time, in my opinion. I think he's up there. Guys like Robert Horry.
He's a role player. You think you'd classify him as a role player?
I would
say actually
I'd be
questioning of whether it's him or Clay is the second most important person on their team.
I think it's him second.
I think it's him, which I would say means he's not a role player, because I don't think Clay is a role player. I think they're all stars. I think they're stars, and Steph is a superstar.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Draymond Green like cook before, like during his summer league games. It's actually kind of funny. I remember watching him now. He was actually getting buckets, and so But besides the point, like, again, I want to talk about him as a player. I don't want to talk about the Jordan Poole. And again, maybe it's my fault because we are doing a segment on this, and whatever you want to say about it, it is what it is. But at the end of the day,
I don't know.
we are reporting it. We're talking about it. But it comes from him first, right? It's not like
Because he brought it up. Yeah.
yeah, it's not like a situation where we're bringing it up because
Jordan Poole again. No, yeah.
Jordan Poole is trying to focus on Washington. I don't think I've ever heard Jordan Poole talk about the situation besides maybe
He
that one small interview that he
he
did.
did, yeah. It was like, what was that, like a week and a half ago though. So I
Yeah.
think it's just more topical just because of that.
Yeah.
I got two last things before we move on to the next
Yeah.
topic or whatever
Go
you
ahead,
want to
man.
do. I do like I think you said a point earlier, we got away from it really quick, but you said something about you were talking about, Draymond's personality,
Mm-hmm.
basically like, this masculinity stuff that he has, right?
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting that we have probably two of the most specifically that guy that we've probably ever seen in sports right now, both in the NBA and they've played together, and it's Kevin Durant and Draymond Green, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let me explain what I mean. I think like they are the two most upset professional sports athletes I've ever seen with how their personality is discussed in the public, and they expect people to just like them because of their play and because of how the game of basketball goes. But they avoid all thought or consequence as to, what their actual, like, their attitude and their personality is. And they think that, like, they get upset that people care about that stuff in terms of talking about them. But that's not, like, that's literally not what real life is. Like, I say that that's almost my new quote on this channel. I think I say that more than I say the timeline thing nowadays. Is like, that's not what real life is, because it's true. Like, out in the real world, 99% of people, it is a complete total package of who you are as a person. It's your personality mixed with your work ethic and your character in your job or whatever it is you do.
Mm-hmm.
All of that stuff matters in terms of how people are going to perceive you.
Yeah.
So it's just so strange that you have these guys who are at the absolute pinnacle of success in the field they're in, and honestly in life. And they're still so concerned with how people view them as a human being, their personality, even though they take no responsibility for the actions they've had that have led people to feel that way about them. That's the thing that gets me the most about it, Bernie. Like, I'm going to bring up a weird comparison, and it's not really comparing it. It's apples and oranges, right? But like, I think of somebody like Mike Tyson, right? Do you think Mike Tyson would have had the career resurgence in terms of notoriety and the way people talk about him if he didn't have some semblance of like inner view of him as a person, right? And how his personality had made people think of him, right?
Yeah.
He realized that over time. A lot of people do. It just seems like these guys, they don't care that that is the case. Like, and here's the final piece of evidence and thing we could talk about here is the interview I was thinking of. I don't remember who I just said it a minute ago. I think I said Paul George. He had that interview with Trae Young. Did you see that
I did not.
or hear about that? So there was a part of the podcast where they got talking about, the villain role that Trae Young gets put in, right? And how he's perceived as a villain. And Draymond, basically, they get into this conversation where, like, the media does that to us. It's not fun to be the villain. We're not trying to be the villain. But then you think of like some of the stuff they do. It's like, what, you're going to go into Madison Square Garden and mock all the fans and they're not going to boo you in Trae Young's case? Like, do you want them to cheer you? That's not what happens in professional sports. Equally for Draymond, it's like, I don't want to be a villain. Okay, don't punch people multiple different instances in your career. Maybe don't, get in a fight with your coach and all these crazy things. Not like a physical fight. You know what I mean? It's just like,
Yeah.
you want this to be the case, but you don't do anything to actually make it that way. Is Draymond the person? And it's a bummer because honestly, Bernie, he is genuinely one of my favorite basketball players on the court to watch in the 21st century because there's nobody like him.
Mm-hmm.
He's solely unique. I love Draymond, the basketball player. I hate the immaturity in the way he teaches young men to look at masculinity in this immature, just ignorant way. It's so foolish, man. It's such a bummer.
Yeah.
But
So,
I'll get off
so
my high horse there.
you're good. But here I did find it. It was on the Patrick. It was on the Patrick Beverly broadcast. I forgot that he's a Barstool Sports podcaster.
Yes, he
So,
is. Ew. But
really
yeah,
quick, we'll listen to
Sometimes
this quick
I don't
quick
just hit
video.
people. Dialogue, of course, happens over time, and you usually ain't just triggered by something like that fast,
Right.
to that degree. You know what I'm saying? Like this is a team. You know what I'm saying? Like ain't nobody on my team triggering me. In an instant. We know stuff that you don't say amongst men. You know what I'm saying? We know things that you have to stand on. I don't just hit people. Dialogue, of course, happens over
Yeah, and I
time,
mean, like,
and
and that's the thing with Draymond Green. It's just this sort of situation where he talks about it, and to me, I just feel like he's lying in a sense that something doesn't trigger him, and he just goes instantly, right? I think about all the foul calls all the time that these refs call him for, and he just absolutely goes, he gets frustrated. He's one of those guys, and it's okay to be one of those guys. Obviously, you need to learn to control it in terms of not letting it get the best of you. Um, but that to
yeah,
me is the frustrating situation with Draymond. And to go on the point about Kevin Garnett with him, this is one of those things that I feel like NBA athletes and anybody on the internet needs to be careful and look and see what account you are getting that information from before you even post it, before you even talk about it, before you even reply to it, before you at somebody. Please look at your sources, because that is what's going to kill you all the time if you don't get it right. Because then you just look like a fool, because now he deleted it, and because he deleted it, like, everybody's making fun of him, and rightfully so, because it was just, you didn't do your research when you could clearly tell that was, maybe, and that to me is the weird thing that maybe I don't understand as someone that really doesn't use Twitter like that, or any sort of social media like the way that I would say Draymond Green and these guys are using it for. Like, yes, I use it for news and rumors, to help us, find stuff on the show. But what I don't do is, look up my own name, or look up, you know, and maybe just because I'm not popular enough, but you know what I mean? Like, it's weird to me that these athletes act like that. And I think it goes to your point, Pete, about not caring about what others say or what they do. But
that's all they care about. That's all this.
yeah,
That's all Draymond and KD care about. And the my only retort to that, Bernie, is honestly, if he didn't have the mental wherewithal to stop and think before he cold cocked Jordan Poole in Golden State Warriors actual practice facility with a multi tens of $1 million contract on the line, he's not going to stop and look at a source on Twitter. I promise you. It's
true.
that's a mental state. That's called just immaturity, generally
Yeah.
speaking. So, and it's the same thing with KD. I mean, I'm sorry to bring him into it. I know I've already said his name a few times, but it's the same exact stuff, man. You get upset when people call you out for having a burner account. Don't have one. It's that simple. Don't have one. People won't be making fun of you for it.
Yeah.
Same thing for Draymond. He would have called out anybody if they had KG in their name and had it any blue check. He was writing back right then.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we can get off this topic. Just let us know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I know that this was again, like I talk about many times before, this is not something that I like to talk about, and really, go on deep conversations, but I just feel like it needs to be had because, we like I said, we love Draymond Green as a player. Like, we love what he does. I think anybody that watches any semblance of basketball, or coaches, or is high level, I would say honestly high level IQ players, like, what Draymond Green is about. But it's the antics that gets everybody riled up and gets everybody into tizzy, and rightfully so, because it is frustrating to see him do that stuff when he's really a good player. But let us know in the comment section down below what you guys make of this sort of situation. Is Draymond Green right to respond the way that he did? Let us know in the comment section down below. All right. Let's see here. Let's quickly talk about let's go right into the Joel Embiid stuff because I feel like I want to get your opinion on this. Really quick, let me just read this Gilbert Arenas talking point. And this, I believe, was on his show from YouTube. And he kind of goes on to say that Gilbert Arenas on Ben Simmons getting all the blame for the 76er playoffs. He said, well, he didn't say anything. Technically, he didn't say anything. He didn't say anything right. If we're going to put the blame on someone, I'm always going to put the blame on the most talented and the most naturally gifted of the group. And that's got to be Joel Embiid, right? It reminds me of what Shaquille O'Neal was to Kobe Bryant. You have this guy who's hungry. He wants to win. He wants the best that he can be. And then he sees this ultra god gifted player not tapping into his potential. All right, you're Kobe sitting there. They're coming 3 to 4 times a day. Shaq is like, I'm going to show you up, and I'll show you up then. I'll go out there and give you 30, 18. And Kobe's like, you practice 3 times a day. No one on this planet can guard you. That the Joel Embiid thing with me, like, bro, you're so gifted. If you put the hours and hours and on your craft, you'll be unstoppable to a point where Ben Simmons is just, you're supposed to be carrying this team with your dominance, but you're not, and we're blaming everybody else. Why don't you, if you want, you can respond to that, Pete, really quick, and then kind of get onto your opinion about the Joel Embiid rumor of him saying that he'll win the championship somewhere else and the likelihood of him leaving.
I think this is just another instance. Gilbert Arenas is the poster boy for why every ex-professional athlete does not necessarily have a good opinion on the sport they played. I think he's like literally, his picture would be in the dictionary next to that ever became a word for whatever that means. But like, what does he even mean? Is he saying Ben Simmons could have been Kobe? What's the point? What does this message even mean? It's again, apples and oranges. He's literally comparing 2 of the 10 greatest players of all time who were in their prime together, very different characters, to a guy who can't even get on the court anymore and was good for 2 seasons, and a guy who has never made it to an NBA Finals. I mean, it's nonsense to compare the two. I agree in principle with what he's saying, but he's doing the thing that a lot of these guys do, which is trying to make it so bombastic and so like, this is such a hot take. I'm going to compare Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid to Shaq and Kobe. I'm going to get a lot of clicks for this one. Like, you could have just said you blame Joel Embiid for them not getting there, because honestly, I agree. Like, he does need to be better. He does need to be on the court more. He does need to produce in the big moments. That is not wrong. The problem is then you have guys like this say some absolutely nonsensical garbage like this, and it makes the argument that it is actually Joel Embiid even harder to make, you know? Because this is the wrong way to convince people that it's true. We've gone over the Ben Simmons Embiid stuff literally to death. It's all parties involved were at fault at the time, in my opinion. And now it doesn't even matter. Ben Simmons isn't there. He hasn't been there for 2 years. Why are we even still talking about them together? It doesn't matter. Done and over with. The dude hasn't been on a court. Do you want to talk about this before we just talk about Embiid generally? What do you think about this? I mean, do you generally agree with Gilbert Arenas? Do you like his opinions? Because I've honestly heard him say like
he's very hit or miss.
Couple good things. It's honestly mostly miss as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. But
I mean, to me, like I do agree with you in a sense that it's just apples and oranges. I mean, it's hard to carry a team, and anybody that's played the sport knows, like, or anybody that's really played sports in general, right? When you have a team where you have to fill out a couple spots, like one player can really take away from your game. Like, even whether you're a professional athlete playing at the highest level or whether you're playing pickup at the local YMCA or LA Fitness.
Agreed.
If you have one player that's not trying on both offense and defense, or one player that is getting cooked on defense, and one player that can't do anything on offense and just turns the ball over, you're gonna lose the game no matter what. So to me, I feel like I don't necessarily agree with that, or he has to carry him. Because, Joel Embiid could carry and could do a lot of the stuff, but if you have one player that's a net negative, it's going to hurt you in the long run. So the only thing I'll say to Gilbert Arenas' point is that I get where he's coming from, but I agree with him that Joel Embiid does need to carry in terms of taking care of his body, making sure that he's good to go for the playoffs because it seems like he's hurt every single year he's in the playoffs. So from
Mhm.
that perspective, I agree with Gilbert Arenas. But in terms of trying to carry a guy, it's tough. I think it's tough because, like you said, you could be the best player in the world. You could average, 45 to 50 points, but if the rest of your team is not picking up the slack, you're losing the game. So,
Sure, and I think one thing too, and this is the reason I vehemently disagree with his statement here, is like not only is this comparison just flawed from the get-go, but the implication here is that the most talented person in Kobe and Shaq is Shaq, right?
mhm.
He's not in the full effort necessary, while Kobe is this dog. He's so hungry, he's practicing all the time. I mean, the comparison is really if two Shaqs were on the same team, right?
Yeah.
And even that's still wrong. It's still not a good example, but this is completely flawed because Ben Simmons, I mean, there might not be a worse comparison of two players than Kobe and Ben Simmons, period, in all of sports. They couldn't be any different. Like their personality couldn't be any different from one another. Um, so to imply that Ben Simmons is an ultra God gifted player, not tapping into his potential, and that Embiid is there looking at him practicing and saying, "Dang, I need to get on Ben Simmons' level." It's like, what are you even talking about? This dude isn't gonna play next year, maybe for all we know. It's that's crazy. That's so insane that he said that. But yeah, let's move on to just talk about Embiid. The quote.
Hmm.
Um, we actually, I think we've discussed this a couple times leading out of last season. Like, what is going to be the next move for Embiid? He's not going to be happy being stationary, not necessarily making progress in terms of is chasing a title, right? He's got the MVP now, so now we can't moan and complain about that. So now it's got to be the ring. And I think the interesting thing is people, it seemed like for I didn't, I don't use social media. You know this about me, Bernie. I don't look at
Yeah.
really anybody's opinion on most stuff. I listen to a few podcasts, look at some, reporters I like, but really I'm not looking out there and seeing, opinions of just average Joes. No offense to average Joes, other than in the chat. That being said, it seemed like people were surprised by it, but I don't really understand that because if you look at the situation the 76ers are in, it's not good. It really hasn't been good for a few years. I mean, the not to go back to it, the Ben Simmons, that Atlanta Hawks series was really a turning point in what the process was and what Joel Embiid and the 76ers are. This
Yeah.
iteration of them are, at least. It's been ugly since then. They've, had a coach that, apparently Embiid liked and Doc. They got rid of him. They have all these guys come in and out year and year. Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid likes him. He's gone. Ben Simmons, he doesn't like him. It takes him a while to leave. Now you have Harden. The Harden situation is crazy because there might not be a team in the league that wants to trade for him, looking at some of these reports. Because I mean, by the sounds of it, if the Clippers had put in Terrence Mann in their original offer, they probably could have had that deal. But
Hmm.
Terrence Mann to the Clippers is worth more than James Harden is for a lot of teams. So that's pretty nuts, and that puts Joel Embiid in a tough situation.
Yeah.
I'm I'm not surprised whatsoever, just in the mere sense that Embiid is going to be Embiid. This is what he wants. He's looking for whoever is going to buy into him and surround him with whatever he thinks is right. I mean, that is the NBA superstar methodology. Um,
Yeah.
it's funny. Let me ask you something, Bernie. I have a question for you. I was thinking about this the other day in comparison to, um, you think of like, I don't want to get us too off topic. You let me hear what you think about this Embiid situation before I change subjects.
Yeah. I
Kind
mean,
of.
I think everybody on the channel has kind of heard my opinion. If you guys haven't checked that video out, go check out that live stream. We talked a lot about it extensively, I feel like.
Mhm.
But just to kind of reiterate some of the points that I had, I think the frustrating thing for me from Joel Embiid's perspective is the injury history. Like, to me, this is where Joel Embiid has to get in better shape. We talk about Zion Williamson getting in better shape and we criticize him, But I think we also have to do the same thing for Joel Embiid so he can be
Mm-hmm.
healthy when he's playing in the regular season, or sorry, in the postseason, because at the end of the day, we know what the 76ers are going to do with Joel Embiid and the crew that they have right now. They're going to at least be top 3 in the East. They're going to dominate the regular season. But when it comes to the postseason, there seems to be this sort of drop off in terms of shooting, in terms of finishing around the rim, in terms of Joel Embiid, being aggressive and strong. This I want to see that type of Joel Embiid because otherwise he's just, I would say in the similar vein as like Karl Anthony Towns, a guy that won't go in and attack and drive the lane.
Mm-hmm.
Will kind of shoot more jumpers than honestly I would like him to. But at the end of the day, like Joel Embiid, has to be healthy because he's not available. And we talked
Mm-hmm.
about this at nauseum. You've always heard the famous quotes. It's not the best ability is availability. Everyone will always say that, and it's true because you need to be available to play. And if you're not, this team is going to lose no matter what. And so, you know, this is another year where the Joel Embiid 76ers should have made a deeper playoff run. They had the pieces that they thought they could have to win, but ultimately they fall short. And that to me is I would say the frustrating situation as it pertains to I would say Joel
Indeed.
Embiid's career.
Well, and I think this last postseason, Bernie, is it's the perfect example. He comes in, and I know for a fact I called him out on stream on here. I think we both did, but I think it was me in particular in the sense that when we get into the playoffs, remember he got that injury. What was it? Was it his knee
I
that
think it was
got hurt?
no, I think it was his hand. I think he did something to his hand.
Hand? Okay. Maybe I'm thinking of Jalen Brown was his hand too. I was maybe just thinking it was just him. Regardless, I don't know if you remember this. It gets to the Celtics series. The beginning of the Celtics series, he sits out the first game or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
And then it's instantly, you know what? I'm going to make my way out there, but I'm hurt, so I'm going to do my thing, right? I'm going to try my best. But
Yeah.
he came out there and he's like, I'm hurt. And I remember at the time feeling like if you're that hurt, what do like don't play. You don't need to say it. Like you're just giving yourself a built-in excuse before you even get out there. I think that the thing that I realized in that series was that he's not even thinking about it like that. He's not thinking about it as an excuse. I think he's thinking of it almost as like challenge to the rest of his team to take over for him, or like like I can't do this. You guys have to help me out here, right? But there's a big problem with that. That never works in the NBA playoffs. Like the best teams with the best players who stay the healthiest win titles.
Mm-hmm.
We saw the exact same thing, like not the exact same thing, but similarly with Giannis, in the Heat series. He gets hurt, misses a game, comes back. He didn't make any of the excuses, but his guys couldn't carry the load. They got, eliminated by the Heat and they went down. That's essentially the same thing that happened with Embiid, except he needed to talk about it and basically say, my guys aren't good enough to help me get over the hump, rather than I needed to be healthier to get us over the hump. And that's a mentality thing that I think Embiid really needs to figure out. Like, if he truly wants to be a perennial MVP candidate, championship winning guy, he's got to be a mental champion. And I just don't think he has that in him. And I think the Karl Anthony Towns comparison is perfect, Bernie. I think it's flawless. He's a much better version of Karl Anthony Towns, in my opinion. Way, way, way better.
Yeah.
But the mentality is not all that different. It's I have my skills. I'm really good. If you do this and everybody around me is perfect as well, and I don't have to do this thing that I don't really like doing, but it helps us win games. Like for Embiid being in the post, for Karl Anthony Towns being in the post. If they did that more often, they'd be better players. They would be. They don't want to do it. They want to play like guards. And I think that is just find it funny. He says, I just want to have a chance. It's like you need to give your team a consistent chance if you want to have a chance. Every other year, being healthy for 2 rounds is not a chance for your guys. And Harden and Maxey in his third league are not the type of guys who are going to get you over the hump as Joel Embiid. You need to do that for yourself.
Yeah. And I think that's a frustrating thing. So, I think Joel Embiid at the end of the day, it's probably over in Philly. I said it in the last.
You think this is his he's not making it through this offseason on Philly?
I think he's gonna make it, but I could definitely see him being traded because I just think that this team is just gonna, because I don't know what they're gonna get for Harden. I don't think they're gonna get the type of talent that's gonna keep him in contention.
Mm-mm.
But maybe I'm wrong. But I
No,
don't know.
who even could you even name 3 teams that realistically would even have reason to trade something of value for Harden at this point? I don't think I could.
I would
Clippers
probably.
are literally the
I would.
only team that makes sense.
I was gonna say the Clippers, and you have to get Paul George. I think that's really it. I don't think there's any other team personally that I can think of where it's like, yes, we're gonna give you we're gonna give you James Harden, and you give us star player X. I don't see Chicago doing that for Zach LaVine. I don't see. I mean, I really don't see
No.
any team.
The problem is though, like maybe this is just me being an amateur, foolish, casual in my own way. I don't really think like if they went to the Clippers, and let's say they did get Terrence Mann and Norm Powell, right?
Yeah.
Is that really that much of a drop off from James Harden? I don't really think it is. I think that's about the same. Like it's not an individual level of production, but you're getting other things with those guys too that you
Yeah.
equally need, right? So the problem is that the optics of that in terms of we traded we traded James Harden for Terrence Mann and Norm Powell is like that's hard to sell fans on, even though it is technically probably an okay trade.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what Embiid's gonna do, but let's talk about him as like an actual trade, Bernie. Like, where do you think? Obviously, my Knicks are the one that everybody's talking
Yeah.
about, so we can talk about them. What are some other teams you're thinking? What do you think about the Knicks trying to get him? I'm just curious. Like, do you think the grass is really greener for this guy if he goes somewhere else?
Depends on what, and it goes back to what talent's around him.
Hmm.
I just don't know, man. New York, I think, makes sense, but I mean, the amount of assets that the Knicks would have to trade away, would they be like NBA Finals contenders, or would they just be like playoff contenders? Because I mean,
They would,
if you're
yeah.
trading for Joel Embiid, like you have, this is one of those things where it's like you have to make at least the Eastern Conference Finals, or whatever conference final you're a part of.
Let's say hypothetically, Bernie. Let's say they do. Let's say it's
The
Mitchell
Knicks.
Robinson. Yeah, let's say it's the Knicks, right?
All right,
Mitchell Robinson obviously has to go, right? He
yeah,
has to be part of that deal or go somewhere else. Then, I mean, the thing that I would say for you, Bernie, is the only way that trade would happen, it would be the 76ers deciding to not tank and rebuild, but
return to the
do
process.
like a soft rebuild, right? Like
Yeah,
kind of what the Pacers did, where now we have Maxey. We're going to get as much value for Embiid and Harden as we can, and we're just going to be young and talented and see what happens, right?
yeah,
It would have to choose that way because the Knicks couldn't go into it and say, "Here's our 4 best role players," and we're going to
yeah.
see what happens next season. That's not good enough for
Exactly.
either team to do that. So, but let's say it is something like that. Let's say it's Mitchell Robinson. Let's
Hmm.
say it's Grimes and like 5 firsts. That probably is close. It might need to be a little bit more than that because he's the MVP, reigning
Yeah,
MVP.
Evan Fournier. You're right.
Get that guy, dude. Get him out of New York.
That's a separate rant for another day.
I don't even need a Fournier rant. People know how I feel about that bum. Um, do you like? Let's say it is. Let's say it's something like Brunson, RJ. It unfortunately probably Randall is still there, and then Embiid at the 5, and then whoever's at the 3. Like if it's gonna be Josh Hart probably, right?
Yeah.
What does that team sound like to you in the East? Unbiased. Your unbiased opinion first before we hear from me.
Unbiased opinion, it sounds like another, I would say it's another like semifinals or quarterfinals contender type of team.
It's interesting.
I just don't know if they have the bench players, or the dogs, if you will, off the bench
Yeah.
to keep them afloat. Like, I love Jalen Brunson and he's a great player. And I think Julius Randle is a good player too, but in
Mm.
this league now, unfortunately, and I think it's kind of shown that way, especially when it comes to uh the way that the Nuggets are playing, the way that the Lakers are, picking up free agents left and right, they're long and athletic.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with Brunson is that he's short, like shorter. He's a shorter player,
Mm-hmm.
and Julius Randle's also shorter for his position, and so that is the tough sell. When I think about like how you win in this league, how you're gonna win championships, especially in this era where you have very long athletic guys that can shoot, basically can do everything because they're long and athletic, and defensively they can get into passing
Yeah.
lanes. I just find it tough in the East, with Milwaukee staying long and athletic. I would say Miami is close to that. The Celtics are going to continue to be in contention and still be long and athletic. They just got longer
Sure.
with Porzingis.
I'm honestly worried about them more than I was last year, to be straight up with you.
And even the Orlando Magic, like I know that they're a young team, but they are also young and long and athletic. Like they, to me, like we'll talk about young teams at another point. But another team that again got long and athletic. So I think there's just a lot of size and athleticism that I worry about the Knicks contending for a finals. Like I said, I think they could definitely get to the Eastern Conference Finals. If the Miami Heat can do it, then I think the New York Knicks can do it. But I think to win the finals, it's going to be really tough.
I would say, I mean, in my Knicks' defense, they were pretty competitive with that Heat team relative to like the Bucks and some games even the Celtics. Like, not trying to take anything away from the Celtics or say that the Knicks were better than them. That's not true. I'm just saying that Knicks team, they did give that Miami Heat team more problems than they get credit for. If people were watching that full series, it was not that far off. Here's my take on this. Honestly, Bernie, I'm gonna say something. People are gonna call me foolish. It's fine. I get it. I'm a Knicks fan, but you have to understand. This is literally, other than Carmelo Anthony, that is the only situation in my entire 28 years of living on planet Earth. This is the single greatest opportunity to add game-changing player to the New York Knicks roster that we've had, right? I honestly don't want Embiid. And the reason being is because I worry more about the longevity. It's not even like, are we going to be finals contenders next year? Because honestly, I think they would be. If the trade that I said something like that happens and we keep most of our role guys, I think that team is legitimately close. Because one thing that is underrated is I don't think Embiid has ever played with somebody like Brunson, in the sense that Brunson, he is not afraid to take over at the end of games when Embiid is kind of looking to maybe let somebody else do it for him. He's played with Harden and Ben Simmons. He's never played with the Jalen Brunson Captain Clutch himself, right? So I think that works really good. I like the idea of Brunson being like a distributor and running pick and roll with Embiid is disgusting. The two of them, that's unstoppable. Even quickly in Embiid is unbelievably hard to guard. It's just the longevity of it, Bernie. And honestly, I would rather wait. Like if the Knicks are, in pole position to get whoever the next big guy is, like everybody keeps talking, I'm sorry. Whether or not you think Embiid was the best player last season, I want Luka or Giannis or one of those guys. Those are guys that I know are going to be in it for 5+ years going forward. Embiid, I worry about that. I worry about the size, how his knees are going to be. He's always falling down. I mean, you're talking about dude isn't healthy hardly any year the whole way through. You don't see a lot of those guys make it 15+ years into their career as like an impactful guy. So I don't like it. I wouldn't do it. And honestly, if I was Embiid, Bernie, I'd probably stay in Philly. There's not much you can do at this point to have those Philly fans turn on you if you're Embiid. You just got to ride with it and hopefully just trust the process again. This is the new version, and I don't even know if you trust the process, but just be happy that you have an MVP in your back pocket. You have huge contracts for the rest of your career coming up. You have a city that's going to ride for you no matter what. That's what I would want if I was Embiid, because I don't think there's an easy place he can go and then say like, dang, these are the favorites to win a title. Be weird for him to go to the Knicks, but it'd be interesting, Be
Yeah, I mean,
interesting.
I talked about it before too, and we can move on after I just say this. Is just, you know, Joel Embiid just had his contract extension, I believe, either a year ago or 2 years ago at this point now. And to me, like, that is when you use your leverage if you feel like, hey, like, this team isn't really playing very well, or like, I don't really believe in this team. So I'm not going to sign my contract extension until you get me X players, right? I think that's
Hmm.
kind of the issue. And then, because I think it goes back to your point, a while back ago about, do we reward these players for taking the contract but don't use their leverage to get what they want? Um, I just think it's tough because I think Joel Embiid should have used his leverage to demand the players before he signs a contract extension.
Hmm.
But
That's
you
not
know,
what he wanted then, though.
yeah, yeah,
That's why I get so annoyed with the contracts and guys just willy nilly saying, it's time for me to go. It's like you can beg and plead for a 5-year contract. I'm going to be loyal to you. I'm worth this much money for these many years. I expect you to, you know, stay on my side of things and, have my back.
mm-hmm.
Years later, I don't like the way this looks. It's time for me to go. Dad, don't worry about all the stuff I said earlier about me and you guys trusting me and me being able to trust you. Forget that. I'm out of here. It's like, come on, you can't just then choose. Because I think one thing that's interesting about this is Embiid lines up. That contract extension was when Morey came in, signed on, getting
Mm-hmm.
ready to move Ben, and it looks more like, Embiid is going to be the guy in Philly. Who are they going to get him his championship and MVP? And it seems like the cap for that was an MVP award. Like, they're not. Where would you put them right now? Roster they run into next season. I'm just curious. Where would you have them? Are they top 5 team contender for you?
Um, I mean, they're top six for sure.
Top 6. Okay. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know because Boston. I would say Boston. Say
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, Denver, Golden State, the Lakers.
Oh, you're talking about total. I thought you were just talking about conference. My bad.
I'm just saying, like, legit contender for a title, like to win
Oh,
a title.
they're
I'm questioning if they're like right on the cusp of the top 10, like
they're
8 to
they're
9 to 10.
I think they're eight or nine.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to do all our preseason much farther into this, off season as we get closer
Yeah,
to next season. But I think it's just interesting. Like, there's not a lot they can do to make him feel better for whatever it is right now. But this is the NBA, man. People want to move every 5 seconds. So, I
yeah.
mean, final thing about Embiid. Other teams other than the Knicks, what do you think is like realistic? What team do you think might come in there and say, "Hey, about Embiid, let's talk"? Think there are
Um,
any obvious contenders?
Not obvious contenders. I
'Cause
don't
I
think
have
so.
one that I would be really interested in.
Oklahoma City Thunder,
No, about Houston.
Houston.
If Houston comes to Daryl and they're like, you know what, we guys are not going to get somebody who's a vet for Embiid right now. So here's Sangoon, here's Jalen Green, and 4 firsts. I think they're saying yes to that all day long. Something like that. I mean, it probably, I don't know all the business obviously, but I think that would be a fun situation in terms of Embiid could, go down to Houston and have Ime be his coach, maybe bring what he actually needs to get out of him. That might be the place. I hate to always just say Ime is like this whisperer of high potential, low achieving guys, but the only season we've seen him coach, that's what he did. So I would love to see Embiid go there. I think that would actually be a great situation for him. And they have all the assets. They're up there in terms of the most potential like good trades they could offer other teams because they could offer like Tari Eason too. They have a ton of good guys that they don't necessarily need with their weird contract spree they just went on.
Yeah. Yeah, but let us know in the comment section down below, everybody. What do you guys make of this whole Joel Embiid situation? Starting from the Gilbert Arenas, talking about him having to carry the team, and also what Pete and I had to say about Joel Embiid in general. Do you guys agree with us? Do you guys disagree with us? We'd love to know your comments and opinions in the comment section down below. But please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Again, all this stuff helps out us tremendously, and we'd love to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. All right. Let's see here. Is there any topics that you want to talk about before we sign out of here?
I'm fine with whatever as far as your time is concerned. You can pick the topic if you have another one. No?
I don't really have another one because I looked at the news. Nothing really too big other than the coach with the Thunder getting a extension. Anthony Davis,
Good contract.
Anthony Davis going to expect a contract or going to sign a contract extension before camp. Bulls emerged interested in Christian Wood. I know the Lakers are as well. Cavaliers and Nets set to play in Paris. Johnny Juzang is going to be a two-way player for the Jazz. So
Yeah, I kind of like him still.
I do too. I'm hoping he gets a real opportunity in Salt Lake. But yeah, I don't really think there's anything news related that I would like to.
Oh, let's hear. I got one last quick one. We just get. What about just final thoughts on Summer League? Anything that stuck out to you? Anything you want to talk about that, or you
Yeah.
feel like we got it all?
The one thing I will say, and I talked about it on that Joel Embiid stream, and I probably rushed it a little bit too quick. I want to say, shout out to Cam Whitmore. A lot of teams looked over him. They saw the medical records and what these doctors said about him. But I think he's proving to everybody that he can play at this level. He is a really good player. And the fact that he fell all the way down there, what was he, pick?
Who are you talking about?
Cam Whitmore.
Oh, Cam Whitmore. He's 20, I think.
20, right? He dropped all the way to 20. I think he should have been way higher than that. Again, I talked about it probably like in the top 15 is my personal opinion of where he should have went. But, I kind of want to say salute to him. And also, another shout out to Amani Bates, another guy that I believe just had skills and talents. We were talking, again, 2 years ago, we were talking about, or 3 years ago, I would say, people were talking about him and Wembanyama as being like the number 1 and number 2 players in that class.
I think there was a lot of them saying he was one too at the time.
So, I want to say, shout out to him because he balled out in the championship. They won the Summer League championship.
Did.
So, yeah, shout out to him.
And I would say equally shout out to younger brother of my guy Evan Mobley, Isaiah Mobley, because he was nasty. I mean,
MVP,
I saw
that game.
He was the Finals MVP. I think Cam Whitmore was the overall MVP, right?
Yeah, Cam Whitmore was the overall MVP.
I saw a lot of comments saying, "How is this fair? You have a guy that was, all-star almost in the Summer League. People thinking Isaiah Mobley is Evan Mobley."
Yeah,
it's like this is Cavs. Whatever they're doing as far as their young guys are concerned, for the most part, they're killing it. Yeah. One of the more underrated drafting teams as of late, because I like a lot of their young guys. You brought up Amani Bates; he looked really solid. But yeah, even I have a propensity to like some of these we keep the family together type situations. We got I was lobbying heavy for the Thompson brothers to go to the same place, but now we got the Mobleys together at the very least. So I was very impressed with him. And just generally, this is kind of maybe too general, but I was pretty impressed with the Summer League in general. I thought it was very entertaining. Mm-hmm. Honestly, it gets better every year. I don't know about you, Bernie. I find it more entertaining every single year that goes by.
Yeah.
Seems like just a bit, not only is it a bigger deal, but like the games are more competitive. Like they seem to care more and more as it goes on.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to do with that is just the fact that you said it's growing a lot bigger. There's more people invested in it. There's more money that's going allocated to it. So I'm sure that these players that are playing in these games are getting some good residuals. And so I'm excited to see what the Summer League holds for the future, because I think that this is another pathway and another chance for some of these players that we've heard of or we may have never heard of get an opportunity to make a roster spot, because again, that's what these guys are here for. They're here to make a roster spot, here for opportunities. And I think a lot of these guys, I think at times do a little too much because they want to obviously make a roster. So they're going to try to
do everything
and try to force everything. But I will say I'm happy to watch these guys and continue to see them play, and hopefully we get more competitive games and we get a lot of more competitive playoff series in the Summer League.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the better Summer League gets, the better for everybody. It's just more basketball
Exactly.
People we know most of them at the least if you're into the sport. I actually got one last summer league guy just because he's my guy, and I just mentioned him and his brother. But Asur, I feel like he really showed people why there was so many people high on him. I mean, thought he was awesome, just absolutely freakish athleticism. But really, the thing that was stuck out, and it's the reason I was so high on him, was just his defense. I mean, I cannot wait to see that guy make 5 all defensive teams in the next 10 years. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to be rooting for it heavy. He's going to be everywhere, guarding all sorts of people.
Definitely. But yeah, I think that's going to do it here for the charge. I want to thank Pete once again for tuning or for hopping on and talking some basketball.
Thanks for having me as always, brother. Appreciate it.
Yep, and we'll definitely get back on next week and talk a lot more about other stuff going around the league. Of course, we got a lot of more NBA news and rumors and basketball opinions to happen further down the line. But anyway, guys, thank you once again for tuning in, for giving the latest NBA news and rumors and basketball opinions. Please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Again, all that stuff helps us out tremendously and lets people know that, hey, you mess with us, you're interested in basketball, and we want to see you continue to talk about basketball. So help us get to that magic 2,000 number as well. We're about 900 subscribers away from that. So if you guys could do your best and spread the word, it would be awesome, because I want to make sure that we are fulfilling what I think we could do here in this YouTube scene for basketball. So anyway, guys, like I said, my name is Bernie. Pete, thank you for joining, and we'll catch everybody on the next episode.